Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while and my webcam is absolutely trash, but I'm try to get a better one now that I'm actually going to start doing videos again. I have a Shaddoll deck profile today. I got second at locals, uh, 4 rounds of Swiss, went 3-1, won 2-0 against Drytron, won 2-1 against Prank Kids, won 2-1 against ABC, and then lost 1-2 against Virtual World. But the lost to Virtual World, I don't think it's because the deck necessarily loses to Virtual World. I actually think it has a good matchup against Virtual World, especially with some of the side deck options and the trap heavy lineup. But, draw brick, you can just lose those matchups still. But we're going to go ahead and get into it. For the doll lineup, I'm going to start with 3 Shaddoll Wendy. Wendy is, honestly, in my opinion, just the best Shaddoll main deck monster. Flip effect gets you to another Shaddoll. The send effect gets you to another Shaddoll. Anytime that you can foolish a Shaddoll from your deck to your grave using Construct or Squamata or any of those cards, Wendy is honestly going to be your #1 target most of the time just because she gets you that body on board and just really kickstarts your plays. Next, we have 2 copies of Shaddoll Hedgehog. Hedgehog is really good because you have a lot of cards in the deck that you want to discard cards from your hand to activate, like Dinomishus. Also, using your quick play El Shaddoll Fusion, you want to have these extra monsters in your hand, so sending Hedgehog off of a Squamata effect or a Construct effect just to get those extra dolls to your hand to use for fodder is really good, but I feel like you only need it 2. You really don't want that many Shaddolls in this deck because you don't want your hand to be clogged and then just have to set one pass and just absolutely get wrecked by the meta. But so yeah, 2 Hedgehog, 2 Squamata, same idea with the Hedgehog. Squamata is really good because it lets you dump to the grave any Shaddoll card, so you can send any of your monsters to get their effects, or you can even send your spell traps to recur with your fusion monsters, or get back by sending another core after you send a spell trap, which is really good. So yeah, Squamati at 2. 2 Ariel. Ariel is so good in the meta right now. Honestly, I think in some matchups I would want 3 of her, but I don't think I would run any more than 2. Ariel is so good. It's a triple DD Crow. You use Ariel in a fusion summon, or you super poly an opponent's monster with Ariel, and then you get to triple crow something out of their grave. And with Drytron and Virtual World loading up their grave, almost every deck in the meta right now loads up their grave for recursion effects, and if you Ariel them, it just absolutely destroys them. So yeah, definitely double Ariel. Such a good card. We have 1 Beast, 1 Falco, and 1 Dragon. Dragon's really good, pops some cards, and you can pop a Chuchi, you can pop any card that's giving you trouble in the opponent's back row, so that means that we don't really have to run main deck spell trap removal. You can if you want, but I think Dragon does the job just fine, and not many people at my locals play Mystic Mine, so I'm not too worried. Falco is really good for the grind match. It recurs itself, or you can flip effect to get another Shaddoll just for the body on the field. It's just a great advantage card. And then Beast honestly I might bump up to 2 because it is so good, especially to set off of Wendy, because you can send Wendy effect to set a Beast from your deck, and Beast draw 2, discard 1. It's basically just like a graceful charity. The flip effect of Beast is so good, and even if you don't get the flip effect of Beast, the send effect is just draw a card. Like, draw a card is just so powerful, it's kind of insane. Beast is such a great card. So yeah, Beast at 1, Falco at 1, Dragon at 1. I wouldn't mess with Falco or Dragon ratios. You definitely want 1, but I don't think you want 2. Beast, I might do 2. If you don't have any of the cards, some of the cards that you might want for this deck, I think bumping Beast to 2 would be the replacement that you want to go for. Next, that's the end of the doll package. I have 1 Ecclesia. 1 Ecclesia mainly because we just want her to get to Punishment. Punishment is such a good card in this deck for sending your dolls to the grave to get their effects and also just interrupting your opponent during their turn. Ecclesia is a great attribute for Shaddolls because the light allows you to get to Construct. And honestly, this deck doesn't really have any normal summons. Most of the time, it's just set a Shaddoll, set some back row pass. But Ecclesia is also a really solid normal summon into setting back row. So yeah, Ecclesia at 1. You might be able to play Ecclesia at 2 and maybe a Fleur-de-Lis, but I don't. I feel like at that point you should just run Shaddoll Invoked Dogmatico or something with a Fleur-de-Lis and a Nadir Servant. And honestly, it's a good deck, but I think that this variant is the best Shaddoll has against the meta right now. And that is it for the playable monsters. Now we're going to get into hand traps. I have 3 Gamma and a Driver. Gamma is nuts right now, and also lights for Construct. Light hand traps are just so good because they can sit your hand, or you can use them, or you can just fuse them off for a construct. If you have a dead Gamma in your hand, it honestly doesn't feel nearly as bad as it does in any other deck, because now you just have fodder to make a construct. So I don't think I need to explain Gamma anymore. Another light hand trap. I'm playing 3 Nib in the main deck. I think Nib is okay in the meta right now. I really like it because it's a light for construct, as I already explained. But also, the crazy thing about Nibiru and Shaddolls, if you Nibiru while you have any of your Shaddolls on board, your Shaddolls get their Centigrade by card effects, because Nibiru is technically a card effect sending off the field. So that's nuts. So you can just set Squamata, either flip it up using a Sinister Shadow Trap, or just nib them, and then you still get your Shaddoll effect, which is completely nuts. So yeah, nib at 3 in the main deck, I wholeheartedly believe is the way to go. Next, we're going to get into the spells. For the fusions, for the Shaddoll fusions, I'm running 3L and 1 Shaddoll fusion. I really only like having 1 Shaddoll fusion in the main deck, because it's really not that good of a card if you're going first, which this deck wants to go first. And it's just kind of a brick. If you don't draw the dolls, which a lot of the times you don't because you're playing such a heavy trap lineup, you don't really want it in your starting hand because it doesn't really do anything on your opponent's turn, which is you want to play on your opponent's turn in this deck. El Shaddoll, on the other hand, the quick play is so good. You can just set a Shaddoll pass, and then either somehow find a way to get Hedgehog to the grave to add another Shaddoll to your hand to pop El Shaddoll on your opponent's turn, or if you just already have another Shaddoll in your hand and 1 set on the field, or 2 in your hand, or whatever, you can just chain it to one of your opponent's special summon effects, plop a Winda down on the board, and then they can't special summon the rest of the turn because you chained summoning a Winda to their special summon effect, and then they just sit there wondering what to do. It's droplets or bust for them, honestly. So yeah, El Shaddoll Fusion, absolutely nuts card. Shaddoll Fusion, also a nuts card, but I think only 1 in the main deck is the way to go. And then we're also running 3 Super Poly. Super Poly is absolutely disgusting because it lets you interrupt your opponent on their turn and it cannot be responded to. Also, so your dolls obviously don't get the effect off the discard because that's for cost, but they still get their effects off of being fused with your opponent's monsters. You can fuse away with a light to get to your construct. You can fuse away with a dark to get to a window, which is absolutely nuts. You chain Super Poly to one of their special summon effects, summon a window, just like with El Shaddoll Fusion, using one of their monsters now, and they still can't special summon, which is absolutely crazy. Triple Super Poly. Also, no one's expecting Super Poly because most Shaddoll decks right now aren't running it, so this is just an absolutely nuts card. This card should never have been made. Absolutely disgusting. I'll run 3 every single day. Now we're going to get into the traps. For your Shaddoll traps, I like running 1 Core, 1 Schism, 1 Resh. Schism, you can recur with your Shaddoll Core and your other Shaddoll fusions. Even if it gets Cosmic, it doesn't feel that bad because most of the time you've gotten your value out of it. And also, since you're running the 3L Shaddoll and the Shaddoll Fusion and the 3 Super Poly, it's not even close to being the only way to get your fusion monsters out. So it's fine if it gets Cosmic, so I'm okay with running it. 1 Core is just really good to recur spell traps to your hand. Most people aren't expecting it, so they think that they're fine. They're out of Schism range if you can't get a fusion on the field, and then you just go Squamata effects, send Core, add Schism back to hand, and they're like, oh, well, I guess I lose. And Resh is just really good. for the really grindy matches. If you just sit on a construct and a resh and just keep recurring it if anytime your opponent can out it, or a Wenda and just recurring resh and special summoning it using resh, it's just the ultimate grind card. But the first card that I side out most games is resh, because in game 2, a lot of the times you just don't really get there, especially if your opponent makes you go second. So resh is honestly probably the first card I side out, but I would definitely still main deck it. Okay, getting into the next traps. This isn't, I guess it is technically a Shaddoll trap because it says it in the card text, but it's not in the name. Sinister Shadow Games. So absolutely amazing card, so slept on. Foolish any Shaddoll from your deck to your grave, so you get Squamata effect on a trap, but then the sleeper effect, changing any number of face down defense position monsters to face up defense. So that immediately turns a set beast on your turn from a dead card to a compulse. So I can send this Foolish a Shaddoll, use its effect, and then flip summon a beast. A dragon to compulse an opponent's monster and interrupt them, or a Squamata to destroy their monster, or even a Wendy to get another set monster, just get like a set beast or something. This card is honestly insane. Always three in this deck. So good. Next, we're getting into the other traps. We have 2 punishment. I wouldn't run this in any more than 2. I thought about doing 3, but honestly, being locked out of the extra deck, it's not the worst for this deck, but it also doesn't feel good. But I think 2 is fine. You'd play 2 instead of 1 just in case you draw it so that Ecclesia isn't dead if you end up drawing that. Sending your Shaddolls out from your extra deck and getting their effects and popping an opponent's monster just feels so good. The only problem is the extra deck doesn't really run any monster over 3k, so this card's kind of dead against a big boss monster, but it's still an amazing trap. So 2 punishment. Then we have 2 Paleozoic Dionysius. This card is amazing because it doesn't discard for cost. So you can get your Shaddoll effects off the discard. I don't think I need to say anymore. Banish an opponent's monster, get a Shaddoll effect off the discard. It even becomes a body when you activate your other traps when it's in the grave. The absolutely disgusting card. This should be at 3, but I didn't have the third one, so. And then triple Ice Dragon Prison. This is supposed to be Torrential Tribute, but I didn't have Torrential Tribute. So this card is actually supposed to be in the side deck. So if you want to replace this with Torrential Tribute, go ahead. But I was supposed to have this in side deck. But this card put in work today. This card's so good against Virtual World because they have, you can just get a Psychic, banish Psychic, or you can get their Gigi out of their graveyard to banish their True King of all calamities, and they do not see that coming. So yeah, just absolutely amazing card, or even just a body for a link. So absolutely nuts. So yeah, that's the main deck. Next we have the extra deck. 3 construct, best Shaddoll fusion, just disgusting, foolish. On the summon effects, you can destroy any special summon monster it battles with. You get the graveyard recursion after you summon it. So good. So good. Also a great super poly target because it's a light. 2 App Clone. Amazing card to send off punishment because you can just add a Shaddoll, discard it to get its effect, or add a Schism and discard another Shaddoll from your hand and get that effect, and then have Schism in your hand for the next turn, or literally anything. This card is just Omni Search and then discard whatever you want to get its graveyard effect. Absolutely nuts card. Might bump it to 3 if I can find something to cut out of the extra deck, which will probably be the Intis, but we're getting there. Double Wenda. This is also a contender for being bumped to 3, but I think you can manage with just 2. Amazing super poly target. Honestly, just auto wins against some decks because most decks can't make it something to get over Wenda on just 1 special summon, and you can chain most of your fusion cards to make a Wenda on your opponent's turn in response to a special summon that they're not ready for. So amazing. Shekanaga. Great negate card. There's also a lot more Earths in the meta than you would think. There's Drytron. There's some of the Prank Kids cards. I can't think of any more off the top of my head. But yeah, there's a lot more Earths in the meta than you would expect. So yeah, Shekanaga, amazing card. Intis, great punishment target for the double pop. I might take it out, though. I didn't really send it that much today. When it comes up, it's really good, but it doesn't really come up a lot. And then we're going to go into the links. Link 1, Gravity Controller, amazing card. You can special summon your Shaddolls to the extra monster zone and then link them off for a Gravity Controller. Get their graveyard effect, and then Gravity Controller is honestly just really good because most people forget that it can't be destroyed by battle with a monster in the main monster zone, and you can just use it to bounce any monster in their extra monster zone. So honestly, a great removal card. I'm supposed to have another Link 1 in here, Artemis, the Magistus Link 1, but it didn't get to me before the tournament today. So I would probably take out Intis for this, for that card, and that's a good card because you can just link off any of your Spellcaster Shaddolls and trigger Cross Sheep, which, so Cross Sheep has honestly been in Shaddolls since it's come out. It's so good. Just special summoning Fusion Monster to its Link Arrow just to get that free special summon from Graveyard. And then if you haven't already used that effect that turn and Cross Sheep is still on your board, then you can just normal summon a doll, link it into the Artemis Link 1, and then if you already have a Fusion and under one of its arrows, you get the special summon from the grave and the Link effect, which is... Sorry, it doesn't have a Link effect, but it still checks for the Fusion, so you get that free special summon even if you just do the Link 1, which is nuts. Next, Link 2, Construct. Link any 2 flip summon monsters, and then you just get free special summons. So even if you don't have the Fusion card in your hand, you can just use Construct, and its Graveyard Recursion effect is just crazy. You can just keep special summoning it every turn. It's absolutely nuts for the grind game. And then Selene for Link Climbing, amazing card. Most of your main deck Shaddolls are spellcasters, so you can just use this when there's at least 3 spells on the field or graveyard, and then just get a free spellcaster back from your graveyard. And if it's a Shaddoll that you haven't used its effect yet, then if you send it to the graveyard using a card effect, then you get the Shaddoll effect, which is absolutely nuts. But most of the time, you're just going to link that monster off into either Boral Sword or Access Code just to go for game. I don't feel like I need to explain Boral Sword and Access Code. I like having access to both because sometimes one of them won't end the game when the other will. But they're both just really good options. I feel like cutting Boral Sword for if you need another spot for the extra deck, like if you want a third App Clone or a third window, might be the way to go. But I'm not entirely sure. I like this list as is, though. And then to try to make sure this video doesn't get to 20 minutes, we will go right into the side deck. Back row hate, Harpy's Feather Duster, Triple Cosmic. I didn't run into Eldritch today, but I was ready. Virtual World, the back row hate is really good too. Back row hate is just essential in this format. There's so many good trap cards, and when you're playing a trap deck, you don't want your opponent to also have really powerful traps. So just really great to have back row hate in the side deck. Triple Ash. I don't think I need to explain Ash Blossom. It's such a good card. Artifact Lancia at 3. It's so good against Virtual World. It single-handedly won me game 2 against VW, and then just brick after, but that's fine. I have one Cycle Reader in the side deck because I only have one, but honestly, the one is fine because this deck doesn't really have a bad matchup against Drytron, but if you do happen to see the one of Cycle Reader when you side it in, it's just honestly really good. It's game winning against Drytron. One of Imperial Order against spell decks. This is insane. This should be a staple in every trap deck. It's just a nuts card. Should never have come off the ban list. 2 Shaddoll Fusion. As I said, this is an insane card for going second, but I just really don't think it should be in the main deck for this particular deck because it doesn't really do anything immediately, especially since you want to go first. But when you're forced to go second, absolutely insane card. And then Double Dark Ruler No More. I think this is a good card in the meta. I put it in. I probably will end up changing this for Ice Dragon's Prism when I get the Torrentials, just taking these 2 out and putting 2 Ice Dragon Prison in, and probably taking out the 1 Cycle Reader for the other 2 Ice Dragons. So if you want to know what this deck looks like in its final form, it will be minus Cycle Reader, minus 2 Dark Ruler, and put Ice Dragon in the side, and put 3 Torrential in the main deck. but I really like how it performed today. I was very surprised. I hadn't practiced with it too much before the tournament, but it ended up performing extremely well, and I got second and pulled a pot of prosperity out of my prize pack, so that is always a good thing. But thank you guys for watching. I just went over 20 minutes. I did not think it would take this long, but I really appreciate the support, and if you could like and subscribe, that would be amazing. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.